What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. I am Love Coach Scott Katamas, and I'm your host for this Wednesday night edition of The Awakening World. Welcome, and welcome to the Global Peace Tribe. Well, tonight's show is about something that all of us can use support with. It's all about the art of change. How often do you even hear those words put together? The art of change. And I think it's a great topic, and we've got three really amazing human beings that I have a lot of respect for who are going to help us with that. They're going to all share their wisdom on how we can manage change, both personal change and also recognizing that obviously we are part of an awakening world. Our entire planet is changing. Humanity is changing. So we'll talk about the big picture. We're going to talk a lot about the little picture, about the microcosm. And so I want to just briefly introduce who you've got with us. You know this wonderful guy. He's one of our regulars. This is Gary Malkin.
Hey, so good to be here.
It's great to have you back, Gary. We love you very, very much. And, you know, Gary wears many hats. He's, of course, a Grammy Award-winning musical artist.
Emmy, not Grammy.
Oh, I thought you were running a Grammy, too. I apologize.
No.
Right. Emmy Award-winning composer, public speaker, performer, music wellness innovator. And he also did the beautiful work. We did that wonderful show on the art of grief. And so anyway, it's great to have Gary with us. And we also have Hope Fitzgerald. And thank you so much, Gary, for bringing Hope into our universe. A little bit about Hope. She's a spiritual teacher, an intuitive dowser, and also a coach and a healer and an end-of-life midwife and a certified neurofeedback practitioner. So she wears many, many hats. And clearly you've been applying the art of change, Hope, in a lot of different realms. So looking forward to hearing about that. But wait, there's more. We've got Bruce Cryer with us. Bruce is, everybody else, they sent me like a one paragraph. Bruce's description goes on for about 6 pages here. So I'm going to kind of pick I'm going to start with the fact that he, at age 15, sang in the choir for Duke Ellington, and by 19 was playing the boy in the Fantastics. I played El Gallo in the Fantastics. Huh. So we'll get out our swords and we'll do a little memory from when we both did the Fantastics.
I can see it.
There's a curious paradox that no one can explain. Who understands the reaping of the grain? Who knows why spring is born out of winter's laboring pain? We all must die a bit.
We're all former thespians on this stage.
Okay. All right. That's my El Gallo from age 21 back at you. Anyway,
Tremendous.
Bruce is amazing. He was a founding director of HeartMath Institute and CEO of HeartMath for 11 years. And he has really just done a wide variety of things. He is recorded an album of original songs. Stanford commissioned him to create a course on creativity for well-being, and on and on and on. So we've got three people here that are all quite experienced in many different realms in the art of change. So I'm going to ask each of you and we'll kind of go in the same order, Gary, Hope, then Bruce. What's one immediate tool, maybe using an example from your own life of a hard experience of change you faced and a tool that you used that others can practice and utilize? And Gary, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh God, for me, it's always been listening as a tool, listening to music particularly, or listening to nature. But listening is this quieting capacity. It has this quieting capacity to bring me into the present moment. Listening ends up being a call to deeper breath, to deeper connection to my body. So I would say that dropping in, breathing, and listening. And when I was going through the hardest losses in my life, it would be Mahler's 10th Symphony that would always get me into present time and get into my early stages of understanding grief literacy. So that's my immediate response.
That was quick. So to drop into listening, it sounds like you have used music as your pattern disrupt
Yeah.
to get out of monkey mind, to then come back to center, to come back to a centered place.
Yeah. And a friend of mine and I were having dinner last night, and, I'm working on this book called Listening Fire, reclaiming our primordial connection to ourselves, each other, and the earth. And then he said, what about the mysticism of listening? And I suddenly went, ooh. So there is something greater than we can understand that's happening with listening that I think that we've yet to really understand the profundity of it. So yeah.
Beautiful. That's a great response. All right. And of course, to our audience, definitely we want to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions. And I see a lot of our favorite people are with us. Hope, what's an example you'd like to give?
Well, I'm thinking of one of the hardest sort of shocks that came to me 7 years ago now. We had built a beautiful house in a beautiful setting, and in the Berkshires, Western Massachusetts. And I've lived lots of places, and I thought, oh, finally, this is my final home. This is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. And then one morning, my neighbor decided to just plant a whole bunch of trees to block out our view. And it was just out of spite, and we had done nothing wrong. And it was such a mean thing to do and really undeserving. And so I resisted initially. I just resisted this onslaught. And because I knew when I asked my guidance that what it meant was we were supposed to move. And at first I was in resistance. And honestly, that was a really good test to learn how to not resist, trust that there's going to be a better outcome, even though it's painful. And it was trusting in the rightness of something that felt wrong, that had to override my my lower inclinations, let's put it that way. And it did end up being the best thing, but it's really dealing with moving through resistance is the big thing. And we do that, I think, through trust.
There's one other part of your story, kind of the beginning part of the story, that I want to ask you about. When somebody does something cruel or out of spite, I think for the majority of our audience, that's like really foreign because it's so different from the way I think most of the people watching this show think and behave. So how did you manage that? How did you manage that, the kind of the shock of someone doing an act that's mean-spirited, that's having a really big impact on you in your life?
Well, I sat down and I had a deep chat with my guides, and I asked them what it was about. Part of it was that I needed, for some reason, to learn what persecution was. And it's not like persecution that people, I'm not equating it to much worse persecution, let's put it that way. But in a sense, it was somebody more powerful than me, kind of, squatting and saying, I can do this because I'm powerful, and I couldn't fight back. So it helped me to understand what it was about and that it was a lesson. And then I used this tool that came to me in a series of visions in 2010. It's called the Infinity Wave, and it is this very, very high octane, energetic of love and compassion. And I used it. I actively just bathed myself in this infinity wave and brought the love and compassion into my being, and tried to open actually in compassion to this woman who had done this thing. So that's how I worked through it. It took a little while, but that's how I worked through it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Bruce, you've had a little time to think about it. What example are you going to share with us?
In my experience, the unwanted change, the art of unwanted change, I think is the real category, isn't it? Because some change is exciting, and there's an art to that, but I think it's especially when the change is something we didn't vote on, or something that seems so unfair, as in Hope's example. And so what I've been studying in myself and applying more than ever the last few years was the felt sensation of resistance in my body, and to release that through the breath. And there was a breakthrough for me when I began to work with somebody who has now become a partner of mine in business. He's a brilliant, he calls himself a breath artist. And he taught me the sigh of relief. Now, the sigh of relief is a very familiar phrase, but as an actual technique, I had never known, well, there's a way that certain people teach how you do that. And so to be able to take a deep inhale and then really just let the breath drop, as I began to practice that just initially as a technique, I began to realize I'm really letting go physically of what I'm holding inside, the emotional reaction of resistance to the change. I'm able, which definitely I feel as a felt experience of internal resistance and stress. I actually can release that. And probably the most profound time when I felt this and felt the release was when I got COVID in January of 2022. And it came on super intense, I think it did for a lot of people. And in my case, super intense coughing. I've never felt in all my life of having, bronchitis or chest colds, whatever, I've never felt my throat shredded like this one did. It's like, my God, I can barely talk. And after about 24 hours of feeling the virus very much alive in my body and feeling like I'm not even close to a healing modality, let alone just even good old fashioned rest. And I woke up the next morning and I lay there thinking, okay, I've had the requisite hours of sleep and I don't feel anything close to being rested. And so I lay there and I just took myself through this really letting go. And I would even say out loud or just to myself, just let go. So I kept saying, just let go, on this letting go of the breath, not forcing the breath out, but just letting it drop. And I kept doing that and fell asleep fairly soon after. This was 6 a.m. when it was kind of like, well, time to get up. Wait a minute, you got COVID, dude. What are you thinking? And I fell asleep for another 2.5 hours and woke up feeling deeply rested, feeling not like I was completely out of the woods with COVID yet, but like dramatic change. And I thought, wow, that just happened. I allowed myself to really, really let go of the internal resistance of my body kind of fighting this virus, and realizing I'm not in a healing state. I'm not even close to being in a healing state yet. But when I woke up a few hours later, it felt like, okay, the healing has begun.
Mhm.
But I then needed to not take that for granted, because so I needed to then continue when I would want to get back to work. And wow, you're feeling good, man. No, just let go. But to say that and to do that really by the dropping of the breath, which allows me and my physicality to feel it like just dissolve out of my cells. So that was a pretty profound one for me, which I've then applied to other things that aren't explicitly like a malady, that are just a holding on to an expectation that's been disappointed. Whether it's an unfairness like Hope's describing, or whatever it may be. So
That's one of the things that I was taught a long time ago is not to use the words "I'm sick," but "oh, my body's going through healing," and to really frame it that way. When we have a fever, the fever is the body responding. The fever is our body saying, "Okay, we got to heat up the engines here." And so I was just reminded of that, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring all three of you up for a moment here. And here's another question. What's an example of, now all three of you are coaches and guides. I'd love for each of you to share an example of how you've coached someone going through something especially difficult. And again, maybe a coaching practice or a tool.
Scott, with all due respect, you're kind of giving away everything we're going to be about to be talking about. So I really don't want to take too much time, because you're actually asking things that is what our talk is about. So we can do something brief and quick, but I don't want to give away the things that Hope and I have prepared for tonight. So just FYI.
I didn't know that I didn't realize you guys were that prepared. So you can run with it then.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy to answer it quickly, but I just want to make sure we don't give away all of our secrets that we're going to be sharing tonight.
Gary, I wasn't in the awareness. You guys actually had a whole presentation ready to go. So you can go for it then.
Well, fine to answer quickly though. So I just wanted to stress it. So anything come to mind? What was the question again?
How do we coach others?
Yeah. Hope, what do you say to that?
Well, I try to give a view down the road while also staying very in the present. And what we all know is that change is constant. So even the state we're in right in this moment is going to change. And a year from now, 6 months from now, 2 weeks from now, life is going to be completely different. And we're going to talk about this in our talk. But I try to give a sense of there's another future, lying in wait for you.
And I would add to that one of the principles that we're discovering, and what I was going to take this moment to do before I let Bruce talk a little bit about the relevance of his fantastic work, was just a little bit of the history of the origins of this mastering the art of change concept. And a lot of the things that we've developed really came out of, for me and Hope, are working with the concept of being death doulas in Hope's case, and in my case, the development of graceful passages, which some people might or might not know. And so I was going to play a track from that, but now because of we might not do that, we might just jump into our talk. But what I want to say about it is that one of the fundamental premises that is hard to do, but is the most essential component, is to constantly advise, remember, and embody that life happens for us, not to us. And that's what we're going to be talking about in our presentation. And it's harder to do than it's easier to say than it is to do. When the shittiest thing happens and you somehow, like, what Bruce wisely talked about, the unwanted change, and how, and hope as well, just how do we actually, how is this serving us in a way that's impossible to imagine how it could, you know? So that is one of the contexts that would be a really important, you know, this too shall pass, and how is this happening for us, not to us, is one of those fundamental truths that I would probably impart. Bruce, do you have a quickie before I go into the context?
Sure. So I had it's another COVID story. Of course, did anything happen to anybody during COVID, or was that just me? I was coaching this young, brilliant athlete from Germany who was on a full scholarship as a soccer player to the US. And he arrived in the US for the first time 3 months before the pandemic started. So he was just beginning his career as a full scholarship soccer player, and suddenly the whole world shuts down. And for the next 9 months, his world was constantly going into quarantine. If anybody on the team got exposed, they all had to go into quarantine for a week to 10 days. He was 6 weeks in quarantine at a certain point consecutively, and he hadn't gotten sick, but because of what was going on. Meanwhile, he couldn't get home to Germany. Then when he finally went to Germany, he didn't know when he could come back or if he could come back. So he was in this state of, I mean, the whole world was certainly in a state of uncertainty, but his particular version was so challenging for him. This guy, incredibly talented, they wouldn't have pulled him from Germany to come to the US on a full scholarship. Happy ending to the story. Last year, that team won the U.S. national championship as the best soccer team in the entire United States, and he was captain of the team. But before they got to that level, he was dealing with every day another drama, another challenge, another, I don't know about that, I don't know about this, I don't know. So what I kept trying to do for him was just saying, hey man, first of all, join the club. Don't feel like you're bad to be thinking this. don't feel bad that you're that all this is happening to you, and that it's not okay to feel frustrated and to feel anxious. I can't imagine dealing with all of this. And he was still kind of learning English on top of everything else. So so it kind of just being sensitive, compassionate to him for what he was going through, and to try when he could to feel gratitude for anything at all. He still had a wonderful girlfriend, even though she was in Germany. They were still together. He still had wonderful, loving, caring parents. That wasn't going away. So to try to find even moments of coherence and balance. And he, bless his heart, he would practice every day what the tools were, so he could find that balance in the midst of this constant landscape of unpleasant change for him.
That's a very powerful story. Thank you. All right, well, Gary, I don't want to take away any more time from the presentation you and Hope have prepared, so take it away, partner.
So in this time, I was going to share a multi-sensory experience, because for those of you who have followed me in the past on Awakening World or beyond, you know that as a composer and a creator of transformational media, I believe that multisensory experiences actually have the power to really bring us into an entrained state, not only within ourselves, but with each other. And so instead of play a Graceful Passages track, I'm going to play something that I created, this attunement video with Sarah McCrum, a 2-minute piece. And I just want it as a way to kind of be a palate cleanser from this conversation. And I want to, it's basically one of the answers to your question, Scott, which is one of the greatest strategies for being able to be fluid around change is around really, really remembering that we are at the edge of the unknown at every second of every moment in the present moment is the edge of the unknown. So I'm going to use this video as a way to kind of drop us in together. And then what we'll do is Hope and I will begin something that we prepared for you guys. It's kind of an overview of this course that we're excited about launching on August 19th that we'll tell you more about. But just as a way to it's kind of like the equivalent of a meditation, but we're all doing it together. And let's kind of just use this 2-minute video as like a fire, that we're all surrounding this fire, and we're listening and looking at the embers of the fire together. And something in the unified field actually happens between us, within us, around us, everywhere, through us. So I'm going to do that. And one of the things I need to do is, because of Bruce's time frame, after we do this, I'm going to give Bruce his 10 minutes to talk about coherence. That's what we were planning. So I forgot, we can't, Hope and I can't, I don't want to start our presentation until I fulfill my commitment of honoring Bruce to tell a little bit about how he feels about coherence and resilience and creativity around, and how it affects our change literacy. So that's what we'll do. I'm going to play this track. Then Bruce, you got 10 minutes, and then we'll pick up our presentation. How's that sound, Scott? You good with that?
Sounds great to me. Sounds great.
Great. Okay. So I'll share the screen. Let's just use this opportunity to feel your feet on the floor, nice long deep breaths, and look at the screen for the visuals, and we'll just play this track and use it as a meditation for us together. Here we go.
Let's pause for a moment. Let's come into the present. And let's remind ourselves that we've never been here before. We don't have all the answers. We are right on the edge of the unknown. And so let's enter a space of humility, of curiosity, and of wondering. Let's listen deeply to ourselves and to each other. And let's bring our true selves into this conversation. The essence of who we are. Speaking, listening, on the edge of the unknown.
Those transformances are so beautiful, Gary. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you. And without further ado, I'd just love to introduce my beloved brother, my friend, who I've known for almost, I think, 50 years. We were roommates in college, and we have been both devoted to the intersection between music, art, health and wellness, consciousness. And we even have upcoming a special presentation we're going to give on September 15th called What Makes Your Heart Sing, for an organization called the Nursing Way, and where we intersect around the power of coherence and all the things, consciousness shifting, uplifting our frequency. This is Bruce's mastery, and I wanted him to come and participate in this conversation that Hope and I are very excited about, because it has a lot of complementary resonance. The art of change and many of the things that Bruce has devoted his life and his trainings to it's a beautiful complementary contribution to this conversation. So Bruce, take it away for your time, and I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Hope. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. I'm just kind of going with the flow right now, and especially after that beautiful transformance to flesh out the story a little bit about Gary and me, it was back at the end of 2011 when I was recovering from 2 years of bladder cancer, staph infections in my blood, which was MRSA, the bad kind of staph, or the hard to treat kind of staph. My mother passing away after a long decline with Alzheimer's, my marriage on the ropes, double hip replacement, and stepping down as CEO of HeartMath. Other than that, nothing much going on, right? So it was a pretty intense time. And it was after that that I felt motivated to, and a strong, deep calling to sing again. I'd been a performer in New York musical theater. Scott and I have already had our Fantastics moment. I was in the New York cast of the Fantastics, the world's longest running musical, for 800 performances, playing the boy, and it was a remarkable experience on every conceivable level. But fast forward to 40 years later, and I've just gone through all of these situations in 2009 to 2011. And a part of me felt like something major has to change. And talk about change. It was like everything felt like it was in the midst of changing, kind of whether I'd said yes or not. Everything was kind of changing in front of my eyes. And but a very strong compulsion came that I needed to sing again, and that my singing voice needed to be heard in the world again. And this came during singing Christmas carols with 2,000 total strangers at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And having lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains for almost 40 years, I'd been so away from fantastic live music that to be among 2,000 church choir singers from the Washington, D.C. area, and an orchestra of amazing musicians and professional choirs on the stage, I was surrounded, I was bathed, I was not drowning, I was bobbing above the surface, but just kind of overcome with the magnificence of all this. And at the end of the evening, a very strong voice inside me said, your singing voice needs to be heard out in the world again. And I was like, really? Okay. And then the next thought was Gary. And the reason I thought of Gary was long connection, long, deep affection, deep mutual respect from the different life paths we had each been on. And also a sense that whatever I might or might not do with music, Gary would be the path, the guide, the coach, the mentor, the supporter for that process. And within a couple of months, we realized we had a unique chemistry and unique life stories. And while Gary kind of was all out there as a musician with the Emmys and on it went, I had been kind of hibernating in the redwood forest in the Santa Cruz Mountains, not singing at all. And I kind of needed some confidence back. And but we decided that we had a unique kind of set of gifts and stories, and that we should call what we did what makes your heart sing. Because in my case, I was listening to that, and I was paying attention to this impulse in me, which wanted to sing again and wanted Gary's help somehow in making that all happen. And so here we are coming full circle, and 12 years after I had that feeling at the Kennedy Center, we started performing again. And now here we are, September 15th in Tiburon. It's Friday, the 15th of September. Those of you in Marin County or anywhere in the Bay Area will be doing this What Makes Your Heart Sing concert. First time in several years that we've performed together, 4 or 5 years. So, and I think that's relevant in the context of all this, because even the name of this marvelous program that Hope and Gary are doing, You Awake, that's what happened for me. A series of things happened, which was kind of unfolding more and more of me becoming awake. And at first it was like, each one of them was like, really? That's the way I need to awaken? I need to step down from an organization I had helped to found for 20 years, i.e. HeartMath. I need to leave my marriage. My parents are now gone. There were like numerous things that were like allowing me to awaken to the next stage of what I'm destined to do, but they weren't fun. I didn't feel like I was voting on any of them. And yet, as they all unfolded, it was like, no, this was exactly what was supposed to happen. No, you didn't consciously vote on singing again. A voice told you, but who was that voice? So it wasn't like it was outside of you. So I think there's just partly why I've been fascinated with this idea of coherence for so long, and which is a core concept. Many of you already know this, but a core concept of HeartMath, and now popularized by people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a good friend of mine, and Greg Braden and people like this, is that there was something so appealing to my mind about what's possible in our heart. Like my mind could get behind this idea of coherence, that we can be like lasers. We don't have to be just like incandescent light bulbs. We can maximize our potential by aligning our heart and our brain and our soul all together. And the fact that there are actual techniques like what HeartMath developed, enabling us to do that, was like, this is so cool, because it's an opportunity to become fully ourselves in a way that can be measured and kind of, as I say, appeal to the mental, the left brain, if you will, side of ourselves. But I would also say, to kind of tie back to what I was sharing earlier about the letting go, that I feel like I'm becoming a black belt in letting go. I feel like there have been so many situations. And by the way, I encourage everybody to be black belt. I think this is like really the thing that we need to be doing, if we haven't already figured this out, that the ability to let go of expectations, of self-assessments, of self-judgments, of mindsets. Gary and I are 2 months apart. We each just turned 70. There are a few mindsets about what that means to hit that age, right? As is true for every age. And so I keep running into things and realize I'll feel a little pain in my hip, even though I've had hips replaced, and think kind of think of myself as, oh, I'm getting to be an old man now, and then noticing that thought and realizing, let go of that, man. Your biological age 2 years ago was 36. You're not an old man. So let go of that thought, let go of that thing that's gripping you in this moment, that wants to slow you down and turn you into something you're not. You're not an old man. There's nothing about you that is old. So why are you buying into that one? Because it's a habit, because society wants to do that. So I believe there's an enormous power in learning to let go, to, as I experience it, what is the will of God trying to express through me? I didn't used to be comfortable in phrasing it that way. Now I am, because I don't care. I don't care if somebody doesn't want to relate to God. That's okay. You don't have to, but I'm comfortable saying it. I won't oversay it either, by the way, so we don't alienate people. But I guess my point is that this idea of letting go of what the mindset is, or what the goal is, that I think is so important to achieve, to let go of that, not to become just an inert person that doesn't have any sense of what my purpose in life is. Not at all. I still feel very purpose driven. I love the fact that you call yourself love coach, Scott. You know, I made the public declaration about 33 years ago, right before HeartMath was starting. We knew it was going to be all about the heart. We didn't even have the name yet. Wow. That this was all about the heart. And I said out loud in public one day, I am devoting myself to the path of the heart, to the path of love. I don't know what that's going to mean. I don't know really what I'm saying. I just know I am committed to it. And so many times over the years, it was like, oh, now I see another aspect of what I meant when I said that 30 years ago. And to me, this idea of learning to let go to the power of love that's trying to guide me and guide, I believe, all of us, is one of the greatest gifts, is to try to get to that, to be able to let go of anything that's coming in the way of that, any mindset, anything I'm putting ahead or higher than that pursuit, and to be the most loving person I can possibly be, that being my legacy. Whatever about if I write another book, if I speak in front of thousands of people, anything like that, is less important than I have felt that I have contributed everything I possibly could through love in my interactions with all of you right now, with the 17 brand new nursing students that I trained today in heart coherence here in West Virginia. I'm in Bridgeport, West Virginia. And these 17 young nursing students, they weren't all that young. 3 of the students each had 4 children already.
Wow.
I thought, what? Where am I? What is, and then I thought, well, maybe that's what nursing is like these days. Maybe a lot of people are coming back later. And to get into their lives, and this one woman who didn't appear to be very healthy was considerably overweight. We were talking about gratitude at one point, and she was making a gratitude list. And the thing that was profound for her, she sat there in this group. It was their 3rd day of orientation. They're brand new students. They haven't even started full classes yet. And yet the university decided they needed a heart math course before they even started their formal education yet, to help them become convinced of the value of wellness and holistic views before they even get into it seriously. So this one young woman sat there saying, I just feel so grateful that I have been given an opportunity to learn about things to help my family, to end the suffering that my family has had for generations, because no one had this education. And she sat there she was probably early 20s, mid 20s maybe. And I was just imagining what these generations behind her and what she's endured of the ill health or whatever it was. And to feel her joy and gratitude of like, and I think today was even like a shock for a lot of them. Like, we had no idea this was going to be part of this whole, who is this guy who's talking to us today about the heart and coherence and wellness and all this stuff.
Bruce,
So,
I want to say something here if I can come on, because we got to wind it. But I thought that you were going to share like all the expertise that you have around coherence, around creativity, around Renaissance man, around the arts, around music. And it's so amazing how quickly we forget that your life story is such a perfect and moving testimony to cultivating and mastering the art of change. And I'm so grateful. It goes beyond anything I dreamed of you sharing, was your very story you shared. It's such a beautiful example of what navigating the art of change is all about. And it brings back the days of when you came to me and we started working together, and it was just such a beautiful time when I felt like I could never get a hold of you because you were, when you said you were hibernating, good luck. The guy had miles, like thousands of miles on United Frequent Files because he's traveling all over the world as a CEO of HeartMath. Hardly hibernating, buddy. But I could hear you talk for so long because you have such a great life story. And I just want to thank you I'm sorry that I have to end because we have time considerations, but I just really want to thank you for sharing the best way you could through your own personal story of what it looks like to be a master of art, a master of change. It's a beautiful thing to see you. And having known you as long as I have, you really are in the best moment of your life. I can see you're just shining. It's gorgeous to see you at this time. So I'm sorry to wind you up, but make your final comments before we take it to
and I
the
also
next
want to,
stage.
Bruce has been very kind to provide us with a couple of gifts. So Bruce, I'm going to go to the website that you blessed us with. Tell us about these 2 free gifts for an inspired life, and I'm going to put it in the chat box. But tell us a little bit about what this is.
sure. Thank you, Scott, for asking. So if you follow the link, it'll take you to a place to put in your email address, and out will come your access to 2 things. And the first one is called Sonic Sanctuaries, which 10 years almost exactly ago, Gary and I were in a studio in Santa Barbara recording a couple of guided meditations that we called Sonic Sanctuaries. And one of them is called The Power of Willingness, and the other is called The Power of Playfulness. There you're seeing it right now, that image right there. And so I'm offering that as a gift to you. And the second thing is, as you heard, having created this course on creativity for Stanford, and I've done it around the world in various ways, I've got this ebook called Finding Your Creative Brilliance. And it's something that I wrote and I designed. So it's definitely an act of creation on my part. And so, yeah, Scott, thank you for kind of scrolling. This is a little excerpt, a little 45-second excerpt of what the guided meditation, and the meditation is kind of similar to what Gary played of the work with Sarah McCrum. It's my voice leading the meditation. Gary's brilliance of composing as he went, having never heard me speak the script, he was hearing it for the first time and able to play this exquisite 26-minute composition for the first meditation, 21-minute composition for the second meditation. And it was a thrilling experience to be live recording that with Gary in the studio. And so those are the gifts, the two guided meditations and the ebook about finding your creative brilliance. So,
oh, thank you. And you are the gift, Bruce. Thank you. Thank you so much for a lifetime of service and for all that you shared, and the reminder for us to really learn to listen, whatever you want to call it God, call it higher self, learning to listen and to follow that guidance. I just really want to emphasize that part of the story stood out for me especially. So, thank you for being with us, and thank you for
my pleasure.
your wonderful work in the world.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Hope.
Definitely have to, Scott, you definitely have to have Bruce as a guest on one
Oh
of
my
your
God, absolutely. Absolutely.
Saturday night of experiences, because he's excuse me, with the onset of heart coherence being so popular thanks to Dispenza and more. I'll never forget when we spoke on the same stage next to Joe Dispenza and had dinner with him 2 nights in a row and everything. And Dispenza's made heart coherence kind of like so hot. So I think that it would be great to have him on a show one Saturday
Yeah,
night.
absolutely. Absolutely. We'll do that.
Great. Love you, Bruce. Thank you, man.
Love you too, man.
So let's bring on Hope as well. And we're just starting our, so let's just jump in. Shall we?
Let's do it.
So before, I'll just say one little thing that about 5, 6, 7, I don't know, 8 years, I don't know, years ago when I was at your house, we had this moment. We were still getting to know each other, Hope and I, in this beautiful home she referenced earlier, which I think I had more grief about letting it go than you did. It was like the most idyllic place. And she said, well, one of my core missions in life is really helping people navigate the experience of death and dying and loss. And I looked at her and I went, what did you just say? And she repeated it. And I went, I don't know if you know this, but if I had a year to live, that's all I would want to do is help people with what Graceful Passages was dedicated to. And in that moment, she looked at me and it felt like something literally like lightning and thunder cracking behind us. And I went, you are like a kindred spirit of the highest order. And let's make a deal that we do something together towards that end. And we shook hands on it, literally, and on her couch in the living room. And we kept holding space for this. So you have to understand, we've been pregnant with this for how many years, Hope?
I don't know, 7 or 8.
Yeah. But we stayed true to this soul commitment that we both recognize that we're part of what we felt that our lives came in for, aligned with a complementary vision of knowing that we both had something to bring that was unique and complementary. And that's what you're about to see a little taste of tonight. We synthesized what is a 2-day course that we've developed that's going to happen on August 19th and 20th online that, we'll promote, and you'll get the link, and I'll probably put it in periodically, and maybe Scott will too. It's u-awake.com for finding out at registration. But what you're about to see is a synthesis and a taste of what we've worked very hard on to make this available, because we feel like this code, this 4-step process, we think is one of the contributions to actually helping people connect to their best versions of themselves and to their life's purpose. So you'll see why as we begin the presentation. So if we may use this time, Scott, and we'll jump in, and actually we have PowerPoint, we have things to share. So let's just start first by beginning with what is that this begins with. So I'm just going to get ready with the PowerPoint when I'm ready to bring it up. So hold on. Where are we? I thought I had it ready. And where are you? There it is. Okay. There we go. Okay. So here we are. And I guess what I want to say is that we're here to talk. This talk is about change, in case you didn't realize. It's about grief. It's about death. It's about love and life. Stick with us here, because at the end, we guarantee you'll be feeling the love again. But actually, life guides us in every realm, not just the easy parts. Love can even, and maybe especially, guide us through the change of loss. Let's face it, aside from death and taxes, the other two guarantees are love and grief.
And why is that? Right? Because every time the door opens to love, the door opens for the potential for grief, because of the potential to lose that love. And we know how change works. It's people come, people go for a variety of reasons. But love and grief actually walk hand in hand, not always at the same time, but sometimes exactly at the same time. Who doesn't know the experience of losing someone and loving them more than ever before, right? I love the Khalil Gibran quote, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain."
I love Khalil Gibran. And so we all know what to do with our love. I mean, the love coach. We're on the Scott Katamas's world, right? We express it, we nurture it, we sing about it, we dance about it, and we languish it. We all want to stay with it as long as possible. And the world is saturated with paths to achieve and express and simmer in love. It's outwardly focused, right? Love is such an external engagement, right? But what are we to do with grief? There's very little instruction about how to deal with it. And it's such a societal no-no to stay in it too long. And there's so much shame built into this. We want to get through grief as quickly as possible because it doesn't feel good. And because we live in the perfect storm of a mainstream culture that wants to shove it down and cover it up, right? Okay. And it's inwardly oriented. So it's the cave dwelling. It's the yin to the yang of love. So I'm going to start bringing in our slideshow because we have all these pretty things to look at. Go ahead, Hope.
So the thing that happens is if we don't have a roadmap with this grief, because there's very little written about it, more now than ever before, but or we don't have a process that we can depend on, and we certainly don't have the cultural acceptance. So what do? We actually end up stuffing it, we avoid it, we resist it, and that's because we're trying to keep up with life, or so we think, because really, unbeknownst to us, our unacknowledged grief, and of course there's grief that we are conscious about, but there's unacknowledged grief that ends up sort of driving this inner bus of ours, and you can't find a consolidating exit ramp. Eventually, grief will happen to all of us, whether we like it or not, and it will change us absolutely forever.
And we are in such a culture where we're very explicitly clear about health and wellness in our physiological body, right? We've had the great pleasure to do some presentations to Dr. Clint Rogers' Ancient Secrets community. And it's so clear that people want to detox the toxins out of their bodies, right? Out of their cells, out of their liver, right? But this is really what we've developed here that you'll have a deeper experience of with more immersive content, is a detox for our emotional and spiritual beings. And we now know on an energetic level that the body keeps the score, right?
Mhm.
So to this end, we've offered an experiential workshop to help people navigate transitions of all kinds. And I love what Bruce said, unwanted change. That's a really great distinction, Bruce. I'm so glad you said that. And or the unexpected, right? So what we're offering here is a metaphor. It's a panchakarma detox. That's a Ayurvedic term for detox for the emotional body. And just as our physical bodies are necessary to cleanse, we believe that giving the emotional and spiritual body their due leads to healthier mental and heart-based states.
Yeah, because, the idea is that if we establish this kind of dialogue with ourselves, let's say right now, and especially if we get so deep that we can actually confront the truth of our bookend, what I call the bookend, which is the beginning and the end of our lives, then once we've established that dialogue, we are so much better prepared for when a big wave of grief comes, something happens, we lose somebody, or we find ourselves leaving this world. So this is a way, ancient cultures all practiced dying. I mean, it was considered one of the number one things you should do as a living person is to practice dying. So you did it cleanly, you did it well. So we believe that living with the end in mind enriches our daily experience so much more with gratitude and joy. So how do we get there?
So we have created a process, a 4-step process we call it the Chrysalis process. And our 4-step program, using the immense powers of music and guided meditation to tenderly access the deepest waters for a transformational personal experience. And I personally believe that unattended grief is one of the most significant obstructions to being who we came here to be, right?
And the thing is, as you have already experienced, but you will again, Gary's abilities, and Bruce spoke about it too, his incredibly, his gifts and sensitivity with his music and the spaciousness of his music elevates our experience. In fact, it creates a roadway into the deepest parts of ourselves. So with that and with some guided meditation, we will address 4 areas, this 4-step process. The first one is going to be, of course, releasing grief, because it's hard to move forward into other things when we're still, burdened with all of this. And so the second stage moves into self-acceptance and forgiveness, because usually when grief comes up, there's somebody we usually want to blame, and we got to figure out how to move through that. Then the third phase is facing the mystery and cultivating awe. That is what we call looking at that bookend. And we do it in a way that's extremely safe and actually kind of inviting. And then lastly, we move into the gratitude for the preciousness of life. So those are the 4 steps. We're going to touch lightly on step 2 and 3 tonight. We're going to spend a lot more time in step 1 and then step 4. So you will be elevated by the end of this, promise.
So one of the people I most admire in this field is the revelations and the writings of Francis Weller. And one of the great things he stands for is not only this quote, but also the fact that true grief literacy goes hand in hand with community, with shared ritual, right? So I highly recommend his books and his work. He's just brilliant. And in an individualistic culture like America that stresses the individual so much, it's so radically antithetical to how we all think about going into a corner and, going under a rock while we're healing. So this beautiful quote is, when our grief cannot be spoken. And just listen to this quote and let it call the parts of your consciousness that have hidden places of grief that are hidden even to you. As grief can't be spoken, it falls into the shadow. and rearises in us as symptoms. So many of us are depressed, anxious, lonely. We struggle and find ourselves moving at a breathless pace, trying to keep up with the machinery of culture. Now, can you identify any part of you that sometimes runs away from the discomfort of a loss or a grief or something that you don't want to accept? Of course, it's human nature, right?
Gary, did you want to be sharing the PowerPoint? Because I don't see it.
Oh, what?
No.
All this time you haven't been seeing the PowerPoint?
Does anybody else see it?
Nope, no
oh,
PowerPoint, Jerry.
Oh,
Just-
well,
just,
that's perfect because I'm really glad that you got to see us. Now, I'm sorry that I've been enjoying these images. So that's great. So anyway,
now we see it. Now
All right,
we
good.
see it.
So here's the quote that that you can see it, and it might be even easier. Yeah. So sorry about that. So yeah, we don't. You get that quote, so it's pretty.
We
easy.
got it.
So go ahead,
Beautiful.
Hope. Why don't you go into this? I
Okay.
love this picture. So
Well, I picked up Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book on death and dying when I was in high school. I clearly was a little different from the other kids.
just
I was
just a tad.
just a tad. I was really curious about this whole field, and she, of course, she had outlined the 5 stages of grief. But as an older person now, I often feel like the right-hand side of the picture, that crazy jumbled up, not very straight line called the road you got, and I think it's, well, there's a lot we can say about it, but for one, I will say that often all the stages of grief happen all at the same time, and you can't even pull them apart from one another. Sometimes you can, but often you can't. And the other thing is that we were talking about the unacknowledged grief, and what can happen is, if that unacknowledged grief is hanging about in the field, in your emotional field, in your physical field, then a new one comes in and it starts to stack on the old grief. And it sort of stacks and stacks and stacks. And what ends up happening, and I've seen this a lot in the last few years because of all the changes that we've been through and all the losses we've been through, is this sort of numbness that's happened. And that is why we are doing what we're doing. That is why Gary and I are doing what we're doing, to help people come out of the numbness and the sort of, I don't even know how to walk anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
and can you identify in yourself where are what things have changed since COVID? You're less inclined to go outside, less inclined to take on new things. What are the couple of those things? I know it's off script, but just it's that numbness that lets us just be more contracted in our lives. And can you all recognize that that's happened to all of us to some degree? Go ahead.
So the thing to do is to, first of all, understand that, of course, all grieving is individual, and each thing you grieve is an individual kind of journey. They're not all the same. So dropping expectations about how it's supposed to be is number one. And really, there are only 2 stages of grief, I think, and that is who you were before and who you are after. Because grief will take you on a ride. It will have its way with you. I'm speaking from myself. I should say it has had its way with me. And I emerge differently. I emerge as a different person.
Agreed.
And speaking back to Khalil Gibran, my sorrow bucket is bigger, but so is my capacity for joy. And I have to always remember that when I'm going through the grief.
That's such an important point.
So there are physical symptoms of grief.
Oh, sorry. How did that happen?
I don't know.
I missed the thing. So why don't you go over that a little bit? Somehow the slide.
Okay.
Isn't there.
So the physical symptoms of grief, we can become, and this is speaking to unacknowledged grief too. If we find that we are becoming more touchy about things, little things bug us a lot. We're more emotional in general. These are that's an obvious thing, but most people don't really recognize it as that. They don't recognize that, oh, they're probably grieving, losing things, getting disorganized, getting lost, being just fuzzy in the head. There are, these are things we don't normally associate with somebody grieving, but they are symptoms of that. So there are lots and lots of other things which we'll cover in the workshop, but I'm just touching on a few things for now.
Great. Okay, I'll come back in. So what if our resistance to this grief, to these changes, to the unwanted grief, are more the causes of suffering than from the actual facing of it? Well, we know the laws. I mean, everyone who's been in a wisdom journey of any kind knows that what we resist persists. And in some ways, what we resist persists even stronger in a way that's, that ends up being much more painful. So what if our resistance is causing more suffering? And that then comes into another shift in the American way, right? Because the American way is this individualist, maverick way of shutting down, going into your corner, feeling ashamed of whatever change you're going through, because if you're not perky and young and upbeat and amazing, then you have to just somehow hide, right? And we all know that since COVID, this has become, I love Barbara Marx Hubbard talking about the noosphere. The noosphere is this, I think it's got my interpretation. I don't want to go too off into it, but it's just the collection of all the unexpressed griefs and dreams and dashed heartaches of the planet, right? And it's packed, filled, crazy. It's just nuts what's going on, right? And that's what's moved us. So what we're actually saying is, what if we can reframe grief as an initiation, and an initiation particularly as an initiation into our humanity? So our wounds are actually our portals. As Leonard Cohen said, ring the bells that still can ring. There is no perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And that's just one of those moments where is this? That's just one of those things where when we can shift the understanding of our wounds being our portals to our humanity, it changes everything. And I've learned it, believe me. I also have my wounds and my badges. The heart breaks, the unbelievable losses that I've faced in my life. And it has helped me become so much more empathic and compassionate because of all the losses I've gone through. So, yeah.
So, this idea of grief as an initiation, this really came to me as a way to reframe it, because there are gifts in grief. We can say, well, what would grief give us access to that we wouldn't normally have access to? Anybody who's ever had a difficult diagnosis, for instance, all of a sudden there's a clarity that comes over one about what's really important. There's a perceptivity and an access into the heart about what really matters. It also can reveal where we're hurting, where we're unloved, where we're feeling unloved. So grief actually is just a brilliant, eye-opening experience. And it gives us this opportunity. If grief is actually, as we said before, happening for us, not to us, we start to shift out of the victimization and we move into empowerment. It's really quite an interesting flip. And it takes some guts to do it, because it's it's easier for us to feel victimized, to tell you the truth. But then you go, well, what's the lesson here? Where I'm going to come out the other end of this different. So anyway, I will move on just to say that also loss isn't something to be gotten over or even accepted, but integrated
Yeah.
Mm.
into the new being, incorporating all the lessons. So I'm quoting here, Susan Cain wrote a book called Bittersweet, and she differentiated it by saying it's moving on versus moving forward. Moving forward is incorporating everything that you go through, I go through, we go through.
Yeah. And I love this slide because I don't know how it's happened, but some of the slides are a little bit out of order. Forgive me for moving around. But I love this because the work, I've often said that the work of HeartMath and the work of Brene Brown, for me, have been some of the two most groundbreaking game changers in us starting to really make a shift around wounds being the portal to our humanity. And when we think about our vulnerability as badges of our courage, of our willingness to be authentic and our innocence of the truth of our experience, it is so beautiful when you see somebody vulnerable in their true experience, whatever it is that's true for them. We all melt. We all want that experience, right? So this is one of the reasons why we're trying to create a culture, we're trying to create a whole shift in grief and loss. And this is, oh, sorry, Hope. Here we go. Yeah, a little crazy here. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead, Hope.
So, grief, if it's happening for us, could we actually learn to embrace our grief? I know that's a crazy idea, but what if, and this has been something that I learned just by going through it, that grief can actually be like moving on a river, and it takes you into places, and if you use it like this active thing, you can search for the nuggets in it, asking for the nuggets, the truths to be revealed. You're in the particularly vulnerable moment, as Gary was saying, in this grief ride. And boy, can it bring us fully present, and boy, can it just deliver the goods, deliver the truth. And there's a saying in the Ayurvedic world called Atiti Devo Bhava, and it means welcoming the guest. Welcoming the guest, even if it's grief. Welcoming it and embracing it. So if we can do that, there is an alchemical process that happens. And there's the old mythology of Persephone, who goes into the underworld resisting. She doesn't want to go there. She doesn't want to live down there. She wants to live up in the sunshine. But no, she has to go down there. And when she gets down there, she obviously is very unhappy for a while, but then she starts to work with it. And she starts to rearrange things, and she starts to create some kind of order, and she actually creates something beautiful, so that when she emerges, she is stronger, she is more compassionate, she's this realized person. This is this changing us forever kind of thing. So we have this capacity to use our grief if we are willing to do so. And it's an alchemical process. So here's something interesting. We've talked about how, we didn't actually talk about it, but suffering is different than grieving, because everybody will feel unhappiness and sadness and loss and all of those things. And what happens, though, is sometimes they get stuck in this cycle, and we just go around and around, and our brains, just can't let it go. And it becomes this endless cycle of suffering. What the mind is saying, I'm blaming somebody, or I'm feeling guilty, or I'm feeling remorseful about what I said I shouldn't have said, or I'm angry, or I'm traumatized, or I'm resentful, or I'm disappointed, I'm scared, whatever all these really tough emotions are, create this endless cycle of suffering. But and it's interesting because recently I read an article, a science article, about how that kind of ruminating actually is a way for us to continue the relationship with the person we've lost. Let's say it's a person we've lost. It's that shoulda, coulda, woulda keeps the conversation going and actually keeps us from letting them completely go. It's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And remember, these kinds of moments, the trauma freezes you like a deer in the headlights. So even when you've done a lot of work on yourself, I recently had an experience like that with me where I forgot that I needed to feel the ouch. Instead, I kept reworking the trauma in my head, and that was another way of keeping the vicious cycle going.
Mm. But guess what? We don't have to. We're going to try to bring about the freedom of the spiral. So instead of cycling, we're going to spiral up and out of it. This being conscious in this process of grief is what helps us to be free in the cycle. Free in the spiral, excuse me.
So we are going to go over the hour, like it's going to go probably till around the latest 8. So it might be a 2-hour thing tonight. Is that okay, Scott? That we go as late as that?
Totally okay. But, you know,
Okay.
I would like at some point, go ahead, but in like 5 or 10 minutes, I'd like to just share some comments.
Yeah,
from the-
great.
this
Great.
is a
And
break.
allow
And
people
if
to
you
do
have
that.
like any kind of a musical, another transformance or
Yeah, yeah.
everything, just to, so people can digest this a little bit.
Yeah, well, I have something coming up that is a musical experience with
Okay, great.
images that I'd love you to see. But so basically, this is the section where you can imagine your body cells in the water, the interstitial water, like these cymatic exercise. So check this. This is from Thrive 2. And this is, imagine your body going through what you're about to see.
The way to access this source field of energy appears to be through stillness, sometimes called the 0 point. Stillness is not static. It's a state of harmonic resonance, a rhythmic, balanced interchange of energy. With energy frequencies, the state of complete balance functions like a straw. It intersects with the stillness at the center of each torus in the field, tapping into its pure potential. Stillness is a portal for accessing boundless electricity, developing healing technologies, expanding consciousness, or simply finding peace of mind. Energy moving creates sound, only some of which is in our human range of hearing. The unified field theory proposes that sound waves at different frequencies are what shape energy from the field into matter. We can see this phenomenon unfold in nature when sound waves interact with any form of matter, for example, fluid or sand. Acoustic pressure reliably creates specific.
Yeah, yeah. So before we break, Scott, into sharing things, I want to bypass, I want to go right to the experience, the immersive experience that Hope is so good at. And I just want to, let's do the meditation that is called Give It to the River. And then there'll be a perfect time to take a break and talk about people's thoughts, their comments, their responses. Is that okay with you, Scott? It's about a 10-minute meditation.
Sure, go for it.
Beautiful. Okay. So, because I normally talk about the power of music at this point, but I just want to, I want to just jump into people having a direct experience of one of the tools that we've developed. That is this beautiful exercise you're about to hear. So I am going to ask you all, here we go. Where is it? Here we go. So Hope.
Yes.
There. No, now I'll share the screen. Hold on.
I don't hear the music.
It's coming. It's
Okay.
coming. Yeah. You see the screen now?
Mhm.
Yes, we do.
All right, good. So here we go. So you want to preface this at all without, we're not going to talk about the Infinity Way right now. So
No.
just want to preface what people are about to experience?
What we're going to know, because we're just going to do an experience that will hopefully help to release some of this grief.
Yeah, good, good. Okay, here we go.
Take a deep, deep breath. Pull your breath up from your feet into your heart center and send it back down, right into the earth. And repeat. And let your body sink down. Letting each limb drop away until it is heavier than before. Relaxing deeper and deeper. Now, imagine you are lying in a small boat on a quiet, deep blue river at twilight. You lie comfortably in the boat, thanks to the cushions that are there for you. Above you is the twilight sky, with the light diminishing in the west. Providing a golden glow on the horizon. To the east, the sky darkens and deepens. A small star begins to emerge. There is a hush across the landscape. Your boat floats aimlessly, gently pulled here and there by a puff of breeze. Surrounding you are fields and forests. Birds fly overhead, settling in for the night. You are held in the comfort of your little boat. Here you can relax and deepen into those cushions. Here you can finally let go. Whatever has accumulated or has been stored up in your being may now rise in the safety of your vessel and the knowing of the river. Whatever has gnawed at you, whatever losses, worries, concerns, mistakes, resentments, regrets, all come now to the surface for release. Give them to the river. The river can contain whatever you hold. Let it go, knowing you will still be you afterwards. For there is no grief that can extinguish your flame. Whatever has haunted you, perhaps for your entire life, now can be brought right up to the surface. Let the memories roll upwards, and as they emerge, give them to the river. Let them float to the surface of you and out into the watery flow. The river knows all, and the river moves things along while holding you in love. As you allow this process, which has been needed for so long, wave after wave floods your consciousness and finds its way to the river. Things you wish you'd said or didn't say, all find the river. Emptying out as the sky gets dimmer and darker. You reach a point of emptiness, free now from all those encumbrances. You open your eyes to the skies to see the stars shine ever so brightly upon you. Drifting there in the beautiful river, you feel the benevolence of the universe and the presence all around you of love and acceptance. Here you are a simple human being, yet so much more. Remembered you glows like a torch in the night. A peace comes over you of simply being a part of the magnificent matrix of love, of light, of Gaia, of the entirety of creation. Floating now in the awe of life. Accept the love and compassion encompassing your entire being, renewing you, refueling you, moving into the places you just made available by emptying out, where all the old grief and stories used to reside. Filling them instead with love and compassion. Removing judgment of yourself and others, which brings a peace and a knowing that all is as it should be. You may now wish to sit up in your boat, and by the light of the moon, notice that your boat has begun to move downstream, knowing its destination. Gently gliding through a rising mist. The beauty of the world around you is almost too much to take in. And with great gratitude for this moment, your heart is moved to bursting. As the boat glides, bearing you brilliantly to the shore, the moon rises higher to light your way into your life, and you emerge on land unburdened, lightened, whole, and complete.
Hmm. It was really, really beautiful. Really beautiful. Connie and Andrew writes, you both are coming from such a high vibration perspective. Thank you. Thank you. We send you so much love. You know, before I read more comments, I want to really let people know about what you're offering, because this is a perfect time. And so this is your workshop that's coming up. And I want to encourage people to go to u-awake.com. So for those of you watching on Facebook, it's u-awake.com. And definitely go there right now while I'm talking. Put in your email address. So at the very least, you can stay in touch with Gary and with Hope. But of course, also, yes, I am not a robot. Oh, please don't make you do this. And they make it so difficult to
I
figure out what
know.
the
I
stairs.
know.
I
I
really,
know. It's so frustrating.
stairs are-
I think I have to change this. You just have it say, just check I'm not a robot.
yeah, that
Yeah.
would be enough. Anyway, you're doing this beautiful, beautiful workshop. And I think people are getting enough, a wonderful experience. There's going to be a little bit more tonight, but a wonderful experience of all that you're providing. And so tell us, when is the workshop? When is it actually happening?
Go ahead, Hope.
Well, there it is.
August 19th and 20th. It's 6 hours on the first day, 3 hours on the second day. You know, we had done it all in one day before, and it just seemed a little too squished. So in doing it this way, we're going to have a lot more time, a lot more space for conversations, for interactions,
For breakouts. Yeah.
for breakout. Yeah. Those out in the few times that we have done this workshop so far, that's been the favorite part. And people love to actually have someone to talk to and, you know, share their own lives. And it's been very meaningful.
One of the great awakenings for me, Scott, that really was, I mean, literally, I think I've shared that my life's cross to bear for until recently was a profound lack of self-acceptance. The inner critic was had such a sway over me. And I never really understood that when you do the work of self-love and self-acceptance, that's when forgiveness is possible of self and other. You
Yeah.
can't do it without. And I never knew that before. And when I finally crossed over into a place of just falling in love with Gary in a way that I never had before, this experience of forgiveness was transformative. It wasn't what I thought it was. And we'll talk more about that in the workshop, but it was so much more powerful in understanding what forgiveness was when you've accepted and loved yourself. And I'm a late bloomer. I could have easily gone to my grave without having really understood what self-love meant. And I am proud and happy to say that ding dong, the witch is dead. And I am so grateful to look in the mirror and say, damn, you're a beautiful being, Gary, and I love you.
You are. I do want to read a few comments, and then there's a question that's come in for you. So again, from Connie, she writes, bravo, Gary. That's the job we came here to do. It's the hero-heroine journey. And Scotty Satori says, I'm so excited about what you're doing. Bonnie Russell writes, wonderful meditation. Thank you. Scotty writes, this is so awesome. And then here's a comment and a question from Dorina Joy. But before I read that, I wanted to share something that you had said quite some time ago. You talked about the word bittersweet, and Hope, you might not know that my wife passed away. She literally died in my arms. When people ask me about, where I am with it, that's the word I use. I say it's bittersweet. It's bitter that I still miss her, and it's so sweet that I still miss her. And I've been using that word for years. So I just wanted to mention that. Dorina Joy writes, thank you for your beautiful and deep sharings. For me, one of the quintessence of the art of change is an anonymous quote and invitation. And the quote is, to keep changing incessantly and always remain the same. That's a interesting paradoxical quote to work with. So here is her question. What is your take on that seemingly paradoxical yet wise opportunity? I'll read it one more time. to keep changing incessantly and always remain the same.
I love that. Because you know what that does is it actually, in the heart of paradox is often what the greatest wisdom is. I love F. Scott Fitzgerald says the sign of true wisdom, intelligence, is the ability to hold two realities, opposing realities at the same time, two or more opposing. And so in the koanic expression of that beautiful quote, for me, what I love about it is it allows us to be the alchemists that understands what is the gold and what is the lead. And so the things that remain, that are evergreen and ever alive and ever worth sustaining, that you end up understanding and knowing that which will never die, that which is the gold. And then the ever changing is the surface of the ocean and all of the things that our egoic separate self has to endure in believing that there's actually something, in the sensorial five senses world. So that's how I take it. How do you take it, Hope?
Yeah, I'm working with it. I mean, I think in the changing, I'm trying to get the right words for this. And I think it's maybe what you just said, Gary. We keep coming back to our essential selves. That's the part that doesn't change. But life will move our parts around only to have us maybe go back to our essential selves. But there's still a new flavor, new flavoring on the same steak, something like that, or yogurt or whatever metaphor you want to use. But that's fascinating. I'm gonna sit with that a little more. I want to go deeper with it.
Yeah, I agree. It's lovely. I love when things like that kind of create a tilt. And yeah.
One thing that I'm going to do, and I want to acknowledge Connie, who's wonderful. Connie, who's with us. She helps edit some of our special segments.
Hi, Connie. You're such a deep soul yourself, darling.
Here, I'll bring her up since we're chatting about her. Oops.
Yeah.
There we go.
Connie and Andrew are doing such extraordinary work themselves.
Beautiful work.
Can't wait to see the film. Love to be part of that somehow. I can't wait to know more. Yeah.
Yes, and we're so aligned. What you two are bringing is so aligned with the trust frequency, applying all that, knowing that we have to our relationships and to grief and all that. Thank you for coming from this high place. Hope you were kind of saying, oh, well, this is really challenging, but until we get there to that place you guys are bringing, we're still stuck in a lower vibration. So thank you. We'd love to work together somehow.
Great. Yeah, no, I'm honored to have you on, Connie and Andrew. And is Andrew here as well, or just you?
Yeah, he's here. Andrew, yeah, he's here. We just have, come say hi, Andrew.
He's off editing. Come on, he's got 170.
Hey, Andrew. Hi, hey, beloved. So good to see you both. Yeah, you're such kindred souls.
Yeah, thank you for who you are and what you're bringing.
I was just being totally pampered getting this. What's the term for it? Just heavenly.
But
what did Magdalena do for Jesus with her hair? That anointed.
Well, now you understand why I love working with Hope, because when she does these immersive things, and she's so familiar with that track that you listen to underneath there it's ironically called The Chrysalis, which was named that long before we called this the chrysalis process. And now it all kind of comes together. But the way she does that, I just go into an altered state. She's so transmissive in her capacity to do these guided meditations. And that's why we expanded the program to 2 days, because we need time to elevate ourselves into these immersive states that we're all sensitive to, but it doesn't happen in the fast lane. So we're really, calling forth people that want to have that experience of sensing the immersive higher vibrational state and the experience.
It's that we can know all these things, we talk about these ideas, but it isn't until we have an experience that we really shift. So that is why we provide these in all of the phases of our little workshop. And you just experienced the first one. or
Thank you so much.
a tiny version of it.
And and Scott, I have a way to wrap it up because I have some practical steps that I wanted to give people to take home with them, and then
Right.
a final song that really exemplifies in 5 minutes the step four, which is the joy and the gratefulness. And I want to say one thing about that joy and gratefulness. When being a good Jew, a New York Jew, cultural New York Jew, where victim was was the whole definition of our culture, that I noticed when I was doing deep therapy, the only time that I was really uncomfortable was when things started to work.
Mm, right.
What's wrong with this picture? Things were starting to work, and I started to be really uncomfortable. Like, wait a minute, there's no victim here, and it's like I didn't know who to be because I was so defined about that. So this
Gary,
beautiful,
before you go into conclusion,
yeah, no, great. You're in charge, man. You tell me when.
Well, actually, there's something I normally do early on in the show, and I got so caught up, I didn't do it. And that is to invite all the people that are watching on Facebook, which is the majority of people watching this show, are watching this either on all the different Facebook groups and pages that come through the Sign Network to us. Thank you, John and Summer Raymer. Or you're watching on the Conscious Awakening Network, or you're watching on Unify, or you're watching on Humanity's Team, or you're watching on YouTube. And it's wonderful that you're watching us in those ways. But I want to invite you for the future, or for even now, for the final few minutes, to come join the Global Peace Tribe. Yep, that's it, the Global Peace Tribe. And it's really easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com. Globalpeacetribe.com. You're going to learn all about us, all the different shows that we do. And when you go to globalpeacetribe.com, click register for the new season, and that will take you to our link. And that's where you're going to get the Zoom room links to all of our shows for the next 3 months. We do 2 or 3 shows every week. We also provide an evening meditation every day, 7 days a week. So this is the show you're watching right now, The Art of Change. And then on Saturday night, and nobody is going to want to miss this, on Saturday night, we're going to tackle such a big topic, artificial intelligence, the ethics and discernment and spiritual alignment of it. And dear friend Deborah Giusti is coming back to co-host a very special edition of The Awakening World. And people are going to want to be in the Zoom room, because in the Zoom room, that's where you can ask the questions, you can interact with us, you can get the special discounts that we offer. So again, join the Global Peace Tribe. It's really easy. It takes about 2 minutes. Just click register now once you've gone in there, and come and join us. And you'll also then get an email every Monday with the replays of our previous shows and access. We've done over 500 shows, Gary, since the pandemic began. Over 500. You've been on many of them.
Scott, your contribution to creating a constant opportunity to stay at a high vibe with yourself and each other, it's legendary, actually. Yeah, I'm so.
I like the idea of being legendary.
I am so honored and to have been part of the journey to the small degree that I have been, and I'm just so grateful to what you've done, because it's created a constancy for many people that is so beautiful, and I just can't thank you enough. Really, I can't.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. And Gary, I also want people to know about, again, for the people watching on Facebook, I'll show you, those of you that are in the Zoom room, you can see the link that Gary posted. Tell us about your work for Gaia.com, for Gaia TV.
Well, I have something really exciting to share about this, which I'm so thrilled. So when Michael and Doris Stillwater and I co-created the groundbreaking work called Graceful Passages, A Companion for Living and Dying, and released it in 2001, what I didn't realize what we had discovered was a new modality for uplifting the frequency of the planet, and that I call alchemical wisdom. And what we did was we intuitively just browed our way into asking Thich Nhat Hanh, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Ram Dass, and Zalman Schachter, if you were going to die tomorrow, what would you say to the loved ones in your world? And if you were going to die tomorrow, and then we took those interviews, edited it out, and scored it with an 80-piece orchestra at Skywalker Sound. And Gaia TV in 2015 the first season where many of these Graceful Passages tracks were set to mind-blowing nature images, time-lapse images by David Fortney. And then the second season just got launched this last December, First season was with Bob Proctor and Deepak Chopra, plus messages from Graceful. And the second season has Lynn Twist and Reverend Beckwith and Sarah McCrum and others. So Gaia TV represents, it's called Islands of Inner Peace. And they really represent state of the art, state change opportunities in under 12 minutes, 6 to 12 minutes. So you can, and they're really basically these condensed experiences where in 6 to 12 minutes, you not only can go to a multidimensional state of coherence, but you also get to feel and practice how do you resonate with this being's work enough to want to know, I got to go down that rabbit hole and find out more about Bob Proctor and Ram Dass and Thich Nhat Hanh. And so it creates this very supercharged multisensory experience where you get to dive into an immersive experience with gorgeous images, beautiful scoring, and this time-tested universal wisdom by the visionaries of our time. It turns out that what's going to happen for Peace Week, Scott, drum roll, please. I'm so excited about this. We're doing a pilot for Peace Week on Islands of Inner Peace television program. We're going to talk about the genre and have one or two or three of the guests like Michael Beckwith. We're trying to get Michael Beckwith and Lynn Twist, but basically to talk about how is this an innovation in wisdom delivery, and so people can understand it and can really validate why you would stop your life for 10 minutes to just look at and experience these things. And I'm just really praying and hoping that people will get that it's a phenomenal resource that helps you drop into a state of remembering, you know? So we're going to have a pilot called Islands of Inner Peace television show, Peace Week, unveiled through Hubcast Media and UETV, Unity Earth Television. And this is the first,
very cool.
First time I'm mentioning it, and I'm so excited about it.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. You had a few ways that you wanted to wrap up the show.
Yeah. Well, so thank you for the opportunity, Scott, for us to share this. So we wanted to just make good on our promise that we would leave you upbeat. So the first thing I want to say is just a practical thing. And it might seem like a duh to you guys, but it's amazing how much we rarely take the time to really understand what this means. So I just want to say, don't forget. And this is really the brand that Bruce Cryer and I created, whatmakesyourheartsing.com, or it's .net, I think, I forget which one. But basically, when you focus on what you want, what you love, what makes you happy, it's not that easy. Trust me. When I was faced with this question, what makes my heart sing? What do I really want? I was so used to pleasing everybody else that I really I wasn't good at first. But then when you ask what makes your heart sing, these are the things that are really beautiful grief literacy and change literacy tools. And you can combine music with all these things. Writing, be in nature, connect with friends. I know it sounds obvious, but finding your purpose, dance, poetry, meditating, all these ways of engaging, even if you don't think of yourself as creative. One of the great things that Bruce focuses on is the relationship of creativity to living your best life and being your best version of yourselves. So we really want to remind you that this is something you could do every day, one of these things. And it sounds so simple, but it isn't. It's about really loving yourself, to be good to yourself and give yourself opportunities to be in being space, with or without music, but definitely in a way that would make you happy. So in the spirit of that, you want to add anything before we do the final song, Hope?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Well,
Good to
so
know.
this last song was produced by and arranged by me, but I was honored to be invited to work on a series of songs that were dedicated to God, to the divine. Highly recommend you find this album. It's called Unlock My Heart by Jason Schulman. But if we could, I think I'm going to play the track so we can have random sharing, which will be so much fun, which is so wonderful to do. And I'll just pull the track up, Scott, because we can see everybody on the screen, which I think will be great. When we continue, let me just take this off. and I'll just find this song and share the audio only, which that way we'll get to see people, and that way we can celebrate together that we're never alone. Sound like a plan?
So you want me to go to gallery view?
Yeah, let's do that. And I will play this track. And
All right,
it's
turn
just
on your
such
cameras,
a
people. Don't be shy.
just such a beautiful. I just want to find Never Alone. Where is it? Hold on. Oh my gosh. No, hold on. Sorry. I had it ready on the PowerPoint, but I didn't have it ready on an audio only. So I've got to be there. 1 minute. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to take a breath. Unlock my heart. Where are you? Here you are. Never alone. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Gallery view.
When I ask why, you always say to me, why do you talk as if you're alone? I'm always with you, no matter the time or day. You are never alone. Never alone, my dear. Never alone. Never alone, my dear. You're never alone. Never alone, my dear. Never alone. You might think you're by yourself, but you're never alone.
Can you pin people, Scott?
Sure.
And when I cry,
It's a speaker view, right?
you always
Yeah.
comfort me. You say, let those tears just roll on by. And then I feel your arm around me. You are never alone. Never alone, my dear. Never alone. Never alone, my dear. You're never alone. Never alone, my dear. Never alone. You might think you're by yourself, but you're never alone. You turn your face to me and lift me up so high that I can see that I am always with you, never apart from you. Where I walk, you always walk with me. Never alone, my dear. Never alone, never alone, my dear. You're never alone. Never alone, my dear. Never alone. You may think you're by yourself, but you're never alone.
Alone. Never alone.
Never alone.
I love sharing that like that with everybody. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Oh dear, that's a different song completely.
Oh dear.
Hoffman, I recognize the start of that song. That's
No,
interesting.
no.
No?
It's one of the songs from my musical that you went to.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Which is brilliant. That'll be another show.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, oh God, what a great opportunity to end that song. And just remembering that we're never alone is so important. We're always with the divine at the very least and with each other. It's great. Thank you, Scott, for allowing us to share this work with this community. And we so appreciate you. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Hope. And
Thank
thank
you,
for being
Scott.
with us. And, as always, share this show with everybody, people. Let's, these are beautiful shows. And so the people that are struggling with grief, that are struggling with change, it's easy. You can go right to Facebook right now and capture it that way. I'll even put it into the chat box. Or of course on Monday it'll be on our YouTube channel. And share these shows.
Yeah.
These
And may I say one more plug, Scott? We're doing
plug away.
We're a master class. We're doing a master class also on this. We're doing these next 10 days. We're just hammering the social media airwaves because we want as many people to come. And so master class is on the 15th of August at 11 a.m. random, 11 a.m. Pacific time. But it's going to be going Facebook Live through Sine Wave as well. So we're trying to get as many people as possible to know about this work because we want everyone to be connected to their purpose. We want that world. Go ahead, Bill.
And I think we can just all assume that we have layers that can still be released, that we can be even lighter, that we can be even more joyful. Even if we're kind of doing okay, there's still more. We can always access more.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, both of you, so much. It's been a beautiful show.
Thank you.
And everybody, again, this Saturday night, all about artificial intelligence. It's going to be a really powerful show. I'm curious. We're going to learn a lot. So please join us this Saturday night.
You're endless, Scott. I cannot believe how much you do. It's incredible.
Well, someone's got to do it, right?
You found your purpose, that's for sure.
I've definitely found my purpose. And I'm now also booking live events, including Gary Malkin on August 31st down here where I am in Ashland.
With the Twin Ray, and we're going to do a Graceful Passages.
Dara is with us right now. She's all excited.
Going to do a Graceful Passages workshop that Sunday of Labor Day and at Ashland, Oregon. So
spend Labor Day weekend in Ashland, Oregon with Gary and myself and the Twin Ray and Dara. That's the place to be. Maybe we'll get Bonnie and Roger to drive up from Sacramento. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful few days, and we will see you all on Saturday night.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Go to Gallery View one last time.